Check 1 2, microphone check. 1 2. Check 1 2, mic check 1 2 1 2. Check 1 2, microphone check 1 2 1 2 1 2. Hello, welcome to the room. Welcome to the room. That is fist distance between me and the microphone. A fist. Check 1 2, microphone check 1 2 1 2, microphone check 1 2 1 2. Hello, welcome to the room. Welcome to the room. Check 1 2, microphone check 1 2 1 2. The audio is now left and now it's back. Check 1 2, microphone check. Check 1 2 1 2 1 2. Check 1 2, microphone check 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Hello, microphone 1 2 check 1 2, microphone check 1 2 1 2. In the room. Is that on? No, it's not. Is it? 1 2 1 2 1 2. Yes. Check 1 2. Microphone check 1 2. Yes, I mean, mic's still on. Yeah, that's what I mean. So it will. Check 1 2, microphone check. Hello, this is Joe from Spark. Rock your body, mic check 1 2, 'cause it ain't a party till my crew come through. Shake your body, tell me what you can do, like go.
Good evening, everybody. This is unusual, but welcome. Tuesday, the 11th of May, 6 o'clock, planning meeting for Ryedale District Council. Just for the purpose of public transparency and accountability, the meeting will be live streamed online. Details of how to access the live stream will be made available on the council's website. For health and safety reasons and in accordance with our risk assessment, members of the public are asked to follow the meeting via this method and cannot attend any physical meeting in person. Members of the public wishing to speak to the meeting will be able to do so remotely, and details of how to do this will have been provided to them. So welcome everybody. If the fire alarm goes off, it is for real, it's not a test. Drinking is out there, and the loos are out there as well. You all know this, of course. Apologies for absence.
Yeah, apologies have been received from Councillor Mackenzie, and Councillor Dockerer will substitute.
Thank you very much. Anybody have any declarations of interest, please? Councillor Potter.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I've been lobbied on items 6 and 7.
Councillor Burley.
Same, Chair.
Councillor Cleary.
Items 6 and 7, non-prejudicial, non-pecuniary, personal only.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dockerer.
6 and 7.
Thank you very much. Councillor Thackeray. 6 and 7. Thank you. Councillor Hope. 6 and 7. Thank you very much. Councillor Mason. 6 and 7. Councillor Andrews.
Chair, I'm afraid I don't think I have been lobbied, but just in case. I can't remember seeing enough.
For the record, I've been lobbied on 6 and 7 and also 9, personal, non-prejudicial, non-pecuniary. Okay, great, that's that one done. Thank you very much. Minutes. I don't ask about the minutes because I'm sure there's a backlog of minutes that need signing, but for the purposes of this evening, is everybody happy with the minutes that's come out with this agenda? And that's proposed by Councillor Cleary, seconded by Councillor Potter. Thank you very much. If everybody's happy, can we have a quick show of hands, please? Sorry, Councillor Windress isn't with us at the moment. Councillor Dockerer is abstaining because she wasn't at the previous meeting. And the rest is, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 votes for the minutes. Thank you very much, members. Urgent business. I don't have any urgent business. So if we move on to the schedule of items to be determined, and we'll start with item 6. And I should say we do have some speakers this evening. We have 4 speakers on item 6, 2 on item 7, 2 on item 9 and 2 on item 10. But if we start with item 6, which is 20/00/695 Sproxton Hall Farm, Main Street, Sproxton, and this is for, bear with me, change of use and alteration of farm buildings to form a mixed-use events and venue, barn, wedding ceremonies, reception, small conferences, etc., with associated facilities, landscaping and parking.
Alan should be joining us.
Is Alan joining us remotely? Oh my God.
We're sort of all keeping, I think, oh, there we
First establish that you can hear me, at least. Not heard a response as to...
Yes, Alan, sorry,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Okay,
yes.
thank you. Okay, thank you, Chair. So I will introduce the item and deal with the late submissions and updates in relation to this application. The application is subject to a relatively large number of representations, given the size of the village concerned, and was the subject of a member's site visit on the 9th of December last year. The proposed development site is a farm situated at the eastern end of the village of Sproxton. The site is within the open countryside, AUNB, and relates to curtilage listed buildings, with the main Sproxton Hall being Grade 2 listed. The published report sets out 3 reasons for refusal, which I will briefly summarise. Firstly, the first reason relates to noise disturbance from on-site activity and traffic through the village. The second reason relates to traffic associated with the use and concerns that that traffic cannot be accommodated in a safe and satisfactory manner, leading to conditions prejudicial to highway safety, with specific reference to intervisibility between passing places. And thirdly, the proposals would introduce engineered passing spaces on the approach road to the site and also along the private driveway, which would be detrimental to the character and appearance of this part of the village and this part of the AONB. The reasons for refusal take account of the consultation responses from the Highways Officer on the 29th of April and the Environmental Health Officer on the 19th of April. As referred to in the late pages, the applicant has requested deferral of the application to allow time for detailed responses to the EHO's comments and the Highways Officer's recommendations, and they would wish for further time to liaise with their consultants. In recent days, the applicant has submitted outline proposals in relation to traffic management and noise mitigation, which they believe can be addressed in full in further submissions. Unfortunately, it's not been possible to make any further progress with technical comments from consultees due to the lateness of the submissions and the absence of relevant officers. This afternoon, we have received a counter request from an objector, Joanne Oliver, stating that a request for deferral is inappropriate, and the comments urge members of Planning Committee to determine the application, and reiterating the recommendations for refusal from the technical consultees and from the Planning Department. So at this point, Chair, I will pause the presentation to allow yourself and the councillors to make a decision and consider the applicant's request for a deferral. Thank you.
Sorry, we've got another microphone on. Thank you, Chairman. I think we do have a number of speakers registered to speak on this application, some of whom have made representations about the deferral request. So members, in making that judgment to defer or not to defer, may wish to consider taking the speakers at this point on this item and take that into account when you decide whether to defer or continue to proceed to determine the application, Chairman. So I think that probably would seem a sensible thing to do.
And given that it also includes item 7, which is a listed building consent, it seems the two would run hand in hand. So I think we should think about whether we defer item 6 and 7 as a whole, or whether you want to determine it. But I'm very happy to hear what members think. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Andrews.
Yes, Chair, I agree with Councillor Bailey. But one point I would say is that I do think we should either hear both applications or defer both applications. I don't think we should do one, hear one and not the other.
Thanks, Councillor Andrews. I agree entirely. Councillor Potter, did you?
Yeah, I don't mind which order we do it in, but have we got somebody else on? No. But I'd rather like to hear the exact criteria for being able to defer this application, considering I read one of the emails earlier on, which was saying that it should be strictly for urgent submissions or whatever, and this doesn't strike me as being an urgent submission because it's stuff that's already in the agenda. Thank you.
Would you feel the benefit of a legal opinion on that? Yes. Is Glenn with us remotely? Can we get a legal opinion on whether it's okay to defer this at this late stage or not?
Yes, I am, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Glenn.
Oh, good. application. As far as I can see, there's no reason for a matter to be urgent to enable the committee to defer. It's a request by the applicant, and it's a matter for the committee to decide upon that.
Thanks for that, Glenn. Given that's all that's been said, I think we should go to the speakers. So we have with us first Dewberry, forgive me, who's the clerk of Sproxton Parish Council, parish meeting. If she's with us, would you like to state your case, please?
Hello. I don't know if you've just introduced me, Madam Chair. I think I heard my name. Is that correct?
I did introduce you, and you've got 3 minutes.
It's very difficult to hear you. We can't make anything out that you're saying at all. I'm assuming I'm clear to you.
Yes, you are. Thank you.
I don't understand. Should I begin?
Yes, please begin.
Thank you. Good evening. The parish meeting, as a consultee, objected to the proposal with an 83% majority, and so, based on professional advice, I will be speaking against this proposal, focusing on village amenity and the AONB. A leading charity, the Campaign for the Protection of Rural England, considered the proposal sufficiently detrimental to commission a report which highlights the negative impacts on the AONB, highway safety, public rights of way, and the quality of life for residents. Within the Howardian Hills AONB, adjacent to the North York Moors National Park, the proposals call for numerous passing places, signage and more tarmac, thereby urbanising this rural setting. This is wholly detrimental to the character and appearance of the village. Tranquility is a special quality of the AONB, and Sproxton is recognised to have a high level of serenity. The proposals are contrary to Policy SP 13 and paragraph 172 of the NPPF. By failing to conserve or enhance this nationally protected landscape and scenic beauty. Sproxton sits within an internationally recognised dark skies area. Government seeks to strengthen the NPPF on control of obtrusive light. Outdoor lighting at the proposed venue will cause nuisance, adversely impacting residents and wildlife. Policy SP 14 requires biodiversity to be conserved, restored and enhanced, and calls for developments to be resisted when they increase light and noise pollution in the AONB. Less than 100 metres from the proposed site is Robson Spring Ancient Woodland, managed by the Woodland Trust and home to a wide variety of protected species. This AONB Natural Environment Priority Site is referenced in the Woodland Trust Management Plan for Sproxton, stating semi-natural ancient woodlands are an exceptionally precious and rare habitat and should be protected and enhanced. This wood is particularly important as it is situated in a small concentration of ancient sites which contribute to the quality of the woodland environment of this area. Policy SP 14 states proposals for development which would result in loss or significant harm to habitats or species will only be permitted where there is a need for the development in that location and that benefit of the development outweighs the loss and harm. The proposals provide no community benefit. Sproxton has a vibrant social and
30
community
seconds.
spirit, hosting regular events in residents' homes and gardens without cost and at short notice, ranging from hilarious sports days to memorable VE Day street parties. The village street serves as a footpath and a meeting place for residents to connect, as well as being regularly used by dog walkers, children playing, horse riders and cyclists. The adopted village telephone box serves as a sharing point for books, seeds, plants, and plans are underway to develop the village hall for community use.
Time.
Finally,
Can you wrap up?
there is a concern regarding the existing sewage works, which is already at the limits of its capacity and will not be able to cope with significant additional demand. Thank you for listening. Sproxton Parish Meeting commend you to your officers' recommendation for refusal and wish to thank those officers for their diligence in arriving at that recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next on the list is a supporter, Simon Welford. Mr. Welford, Can you hear us?
Madam Chair, councillors, thank you very much for the opportunity to say a few words this evening in support of the application. I'm a Sproxton resident for 14 years. I love the village, deeply proud of Helmsley, and I wouldn't want to live anywhere other than beautiful Ryedale. But I am concerned about the economic future of where we live. The local economy is not in good shape. Let's just look at two of the key sectors of our economy. First of all, agriculture, which represents 40% of the economy. Agriculture is going through a great period of uncertainty with Brexit, food standard legislation, and the loss of direct funding. It's leading to ever larger farms with consolidation of smaller units into bigger units and lack of opportunity for new entrants. Secondly, accommodation and food services, the third biggest part of our economy at 14%. Helmsley today looks very frayed, disappointingly shabby, with a lot of closed shops. This isn't uniquely due to COVID. Many of these shops won't reopen. Some hotels and some restaurants may also not reopen. There is real concern about the sustainability of commercial shooting, which, as we all know, is an important part of the local economy. I believe that the number one priority for Ryedale District Council and the Planning Department must be both to stimulate economic growth, but also give a direction as to how the economy should be developed into the future. This project at Sproxton Hall is an outstanding example of something that does exactly that, as shown by the economic impact model. It generates an annual cash injection to the economy of £2.5 million. Just putting that into perspective, the North Yorkshire Moors food and accommodation sector is collectively worth £63 million. So this would represent immediately 4% of that sector. If you take the multiplier effect into account, this 2.5 could become between 3.5 and £5 million per annum. It is itself a very significant part of the local economy. It could be considered a golden goose. The business model, which is location hire only, requires full servicing by a deep-rooted local supply chain. Caterers, bar staff, entertainers, musicians, florists, photographers, hairdressers, bakers are some of the people who will benefit from this investment. This means jobs for Ryedale residents. In total, it will deliver 8 jobs. Sproxton Hall wedding venue is designed from its conception to be a destination wedding venue, attracting wedding parties from across the UK. People who would otherwise choose Cornwall, Scotland, or the Lake District, for example. This will be a massive economic stimulus to Helmsley and to Ryedale, benefiting hotels,
3
restaurants.
minutes, Mr. Welford, if you'd like to sum up, please.
Councillors, I think there are 4 very strong reasons to support this project. Firstly, the sustainability of farming operations at Sproxton Hall. Secondly, the very important economic impact from the cash injection of between 2.5 million and £5 million per annum. 8 local jobs. And finally, the marketing of Ryedale as a great place to visit and a great place to get married. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Welford. Next to speak is an objector, Stuart Lum, who is speaking on behalf of Katie and Ian Boddy, please. Are you there, Mr. Lum?
We don't seem to have Mr. Lum on the line, but I do have Mr. Lum's speech, which I'm happy to read out to members if that will be of assistance. Thank you. My name is Stuart Lum, Associate Solicitor at Rollitz LLP. I'm instructed to object to the planning application on behalf of my clients, Mrs. Katie and Mr. Ian Boddy. 2 of the key material objections to the proposed development identified by my clients and the overwhelming majority of Sproxton residents are noise and the impact on highway use and safety. Noise. Due to the very low ambient noise levels and elevated position, the proposed development would result in significant noise impact on and disturbance to all village residents. External noise and traffic noise cannot be successfully mitigated against, especially during the daytime and early evening when residents enjoy the peace of their gardens and walks in the village. Noise generated late at night or in the early hours would cause considerable sleep disturbance for local residents and have a negative impact on their mental well-being. The village objectors collectively commissioned Apex Acoustics, nationally recognised noise consultants, to carry out a technical review of the applicant's noise assessment. This concluded that the applicant's noise report contained a substantial number of errors, inaccuracies and omissions. Ryedale Council's Environmental Health Department has reviewed all of the reports submitted and concluded that the changes under the proposed development would have a significant negative impact on local residents' quality of life, amenity and enjoyment of their properties. As a result, they recommend refusal. Highways. The narrow village street and private road leading to the site are unsuitable for the significantly increased traffic that would be generated by the proposal. This is a no-through road with limited traffic serving 45 residences and no village amenities. Large vehicles presently using the road are only accommodated due to the low levels of private vehicle movements. This road cannot safely accommodate traffic associated with weddings or other events where over 200 guests or delegates could be in attendance. The passing places proposed along the village street have substandard intervisibility, which would result in adverse substantial safety considerations and impacts on other users such as pedestrians, cyclists and horse riders who all have to share the highway. North Yorkshire County Council is the local highway authority for the area. It has objected to the application and recommended refusal because the nature and narrowness of the public carriageway cannot accommodate existing and proposed traffic to a safe and satisfactory level, and this cannot be mitigated. The proposal would lead to conditions prejudicial to highway safety. In conclusion, as both RDC Environmental Health Department and NYCC's Highways Department have expressed grave and substantial concerns relating to adverse impact on both noise and highway safety respectively, contrary to policy SP20 of the Ryedale local plan, this application must be refused. Approval would result in wholly adverse and unacceptable consequences that would permanently impact on the residential amenity for the people of Sproxton. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Gary. And then finally, the last speaker of the evening is the applicant agent, and that's Ms Cheryl Ward. Can you hear us, and are you ready to speak to the committee? You have 3 minutes, and I'll give you 30 seconds audible warning when we get there. Can you hear us? Can you hear us, Miss Ward?
Similarly, Chairman, I do have this speaker's pre-prepared speech if members wish me to read that out. I'm getting a bit dry in the mouth, but I will read it out. She is there, but we can't hear her.
I'm just wondering, Chair. She may have written a pre-recorded speech, but does that relate to to deferring or not deferring, or does it relate to the merits of the application? Because if she is going to speak now, in the light of what's gone on before, she might wish to speak in regard to the deferral of the application, as opposed to the merits.
I think this would cover the issue, Chairman.
Ms Ward, can you hear us? If you are ready, the committee will hear what you have to say to represent your clients. Yeah. I think Gary, we're going to have to go with the written response from her because she's clearly not making a connection or she's not hearing us.
Chair, can I have a question to Glenn, though, that if we're allowed to do this, because if they, as Paul said, if they change their statement or they wanted to change their statement, it's gone.
Can I talk now?
Oh, she's here.
Can you hear us?
me?
If you're ready to make your statement to the committee, we're happy to.
I'm unmuted.
Right, lovely. You've got 3 minutes. I'll give you an audible warning at 30 seconds. Miss Ward, can you hear us?
Hello?
We're ready to hear what you have to say.
Councillor Mason, we've been doing virtual meetings obviously for some considerable time now with speakers. Obviously we do occasionally come across this problem, which is why we do ask for the speeches to be sent, so in the event of a breakdown of connection or whatever, we've got something then to present, which is the response, which is the pre-prepared 3-minute speech. Having looked at this, it does cover the issues but also the request for an extension of time from the applicants, effectively a deferral of decision tonight. So I'm more than happy to read this out, Chairman. I'm in your hands.
Given the technical difficulties, I think we've got to just read it out, Gary. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This letter's from Cheryl Ward, Chartered Town Planner, who's the agent on behalf of the applicants, who starts with her speech. Thank you, Chairman, members and officers. Speaking on behalf of the applicants, Mr and Mrs Wainwright and Son, for agenda item 6. Main issues. The 2 unresolved issues of this case concern highways and amenities issues. The EHO's comments were received on the 27th April, little over a week ago, including the May Day bank holiday. You'll be aware that his comments including issues concerning noise to the nearest noise-sensitive receptor in relation to sleep disturbance, village traffic and the issue of noise arising from ventilation equipment, which we feel could be surmountable. The car park and the smoking area are 150 metres from the nearest noise receptor with no direct line of sight, as there is the applicant's 7-metre high house in between. It must be remembered that the noise assessment is based on something that is not yet taking place, although all attempts have been made to provide the necessary information using guidelines from a recognised international database. Placing the application on the May agenda in no way gives the applicant time to respond. We wish to fully consider the issues that have been recently raised and provide a fully considered response. If guest behaviour is felt to be something of a planning issue, then we could query why the applicant has not been asked to look at the scoping or modelling of guest behaviour until now. In addition, the recent highway concerns has forced the applicant's transport consultants to formulate a quick and direct response to your officers and NYCC highway engineers. We would ask for full consideration by the highway engineer before a decision is taken. We are at a loss to understand why the positive offer to increase the number of passing places seems to have resulted in the highway officer changing his recommendation at an extremely late stage on the 29th of April. Up until this point, to our knowledge, we had agreement in place to create 3 passing places. All that was needed was a full specification of highway works, which are usually conditioned as part of an approval. The applicant is inclined to revert back to the agreed scheme if members consider it has less of an impact on the character and appearance of the village street scene and AOMB. Plan 11547-005B shows the intervisibility between the passing places. It is in fact possible, and that's the plan on the agenda, Chairman. All other issues regarding drainage, ecology, design, light migration and other aspects on local amenity have been addressed together with all heritage impacts through the listed building application recommended for approval on your next agenda item. The AOMB manager maintains no objection to the scheme. To conclude, this council recognises that in a rural area, new tourist attractions and facilities cannot be restricted to more sustainable locations in the district, as this has the potential to stifle opportunities to develop the district tourism base and diversify the wider rural economy. We are simply asking for 1 extra month to look at the issues that have been raised, and if we can respectfully ask that members defer the application to give the applicant a fair attempt to overcome these issues, we would be grateful. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Gary. I'll open it up for members to make a decision about whether we defer or not. Councillor Bailey, I'll come to you because you're the nearest member to the area, because it should be really snowy, I think.
Not because I put my hand up then, Chair. I'll kick this off. I think actually, I do understand that there's a deadlock in views, and clearly opinions have got entrenched. But I'm looking at the highways and environmental health do appear to be the issues, where sometimes they're not significant. Here they're all significant. And I'm looking at the response of the highways, which I think it was a change of heart on the 29th of April, given the bank holiday weekend, given that the applicant has obviously made a lot of investment, I would suggest that if he wants an extra month, we should afford one.
Thank you for that.
So
Councillor Bailey.
I propose deferral for 6 and 7 to test the meeting.
Thank you very much. Councillor Andrews.
Yeah, Chair, I would second that. I think the applicant has got to be given the opportunity to provide the information he has been he wishes to provide, bearing in mind the short notice that he's had. And I don't think we have enough information to decide the application until that has been done.
Thank you for that. Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I endorse the previous two speakers. We're supposed to be an enabling authority. We should give any applicant full opportunity to answer any questions that have come forward. If the case is unsurmountable, we'll be told in due course. I support deferral.
Jim, you wouldn't like to turn your microphone off? Thank you. Sorry. Councillor Andrews, were you seconding the proposal from Councillor Bailey?
I did second it, yes, Chair.
If no one else wishes to speak, I'll go to the vote for deferral of this item. Oh, sorry, Gary.
Chairman, just to alert members to the time scaling of this, dependent on when we get the report. I mean, if it is nearer a month, we won't be hitting June, because we will have to consult. We will have to tell the third parties what we've got, the additional information, whatever that amounts to, and undoubtedly they'll want to respond. So clearly, if we get the application information in the next 2 weeks, then we've got a chance of getting back to June. But we are very much in the hands of the applicants in terms of their month being the month that it takes to get us the information, or whether or not they're able to respond that quickly. So I just want members to bear that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mason.
Did the applicant ask for a month, didn't they? It was in the request, I think.
Well, to quote the words, we're simply asking for 1 extra month to look at the issues. So if they take that full month, it won't be coming to June. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
If no, Councillor Potter.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we can condition this, that we defer it on the understanding that it does come back next month, whether they've come back with the necessary information or not, just to get us within timescales.
I think that's very difficult to confirm at this stage, because we don't know the nature of the technical reports on the noise assessment to control noise at the source. I mean, the technical modelling that would go on in relation to that could already be on with that, but I've no idea at this stage how long that piece of work will take, and then to produce a report. So in effect, if we've got something beyond a fortnight from today, we're struggling to get a report back to your next meeting just because of the agenda, logistics and lead-in times. So we are really, I'm not suggesting there's any tardiness in getting the reports done, it's just the agenda lead-in times for the next meeting. So I can't sit here at the moment and guarantee you to get a further report to you in June if the applicant takes more than a fortnight to get the information to us. And it's not immediately clear how long that will take.
Am I right in thinking as well, Gary, that the reports that do come forward would have to be circulated to the other parties and the parish council for further comment from them?
I think that's the case, but I mean, clearly we can, you know, when we do reconsult, we very often reconsult on a shorter time period dependent on what it is that we get, you know, to get the comments back so that you've got that before you make the decision next time out. But all I'm saying to you is that the timescales for the June the 8th committee are very tight. So I don't want you to go away from here tonight thinking it's coming back to the June the 8th committee.
Councillor Potter, did you want to come back
Yeah,
on that?
are there any particularly difficult connotations to the fact of it being particularly late coming back?
The further information, you mean? Well, I mean, there are reports of a technical nature. The ones in-house we can control, which are the noise reports, and clearly the Environmental Health Officer is familiar with the site. Clearly, other reports relating to the issues relating to the passing spaces and the character of the village street and what might be possible, we're in the hands of the County Council Highways engineer and how quickly that information can be got to him. And any subsequent discussions, if there is a backwards and forwards of discussion between the transport consultants and the highway engineers locally. So we've got more control over the noise issue than we have over the traffic issue.
Councillor Andrews.
Chair, I've heard nothing yet to suggest that there's any urgency in having a decision for deferral. The only person who could have an urgency for a decision would be the applicant. And I can't see why we can't just go straight to a vote on this. It seems to be clear cut to me.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews, for that input. If no one else has anything to say, then I will move to the vote. It has been moved and seconded for deferral, and I'll go down the list. Councillor Andrews. Councillor Bailey. Councillor Cleary. Councillor Dockra. Councillor Goodrick, that's me. 4. Councillor Hope. Councillor Mason. Councillor Potter. Councillor Thackeray. Thank you to members, that's unanimous. It is deferred until whenever it needs to come back, when we've got all the reports, etc. Thank you for that. That was for application 6 and 7, thank you. Moving on to application 8. This is application number 21/00421. It's Major Full. It's land at the Yorkshire Arboretum, Castle Howard Moulton, and it's the formation of an enclosure for the housing of red squirrels to include double door entry points, breeding and release pens, service shed, visitor boardwalk, viewing platform with associated additional parking provision.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I'm presenting this one tonight on behalf of Rachel Balmer, who can't be with the committee this evening. I'm just wondering if we can quickly, no updates to the report itself, Chairman. The reason this application is before you tonight for determination is purely the fact that it is a major application. It's a major category of application, and so therefore your scheme of delegation doesn't cover that, Chairman. I think without labouring the point, if we could just go quickly to the images, Chairman, and just go to the first image. This aerial photograph shows the broad location of the enclosure, and on the screen before you, you can see on the little yellow balloon-shaped item that's the Arboretum Cafe. If you can picture where that is at Castle Howard, so this is to the west of the main group of buildings at Castle Howard. So you can go to the first photograph, please. So this is a photograph facing westwards towards the location of the proposed enclosure. The location has been chosen to avoid areas of principal tree planting, Chairman. And you can see there's a sort of a clearing in the planted area of the Arboretum, and that's where the enclosure is proposed to be. So we can go to the second photograph. This is just panning around, looking in a slightly southward direction. And the next photograph, please. And panning around, this is sort of slightly further south, views out of from where the enclosure would be. And the next photograph. So you're looking out more into open countryside at this point. If you can go to the next view, this is a view from the western side of the Arboretum, looking backwards towards back towards in the general direction of the cafe. You can't see the cafe from here, but the enclosure would be behind the first group of trees that you see in this location here. And the next photograph. This is just panning around again, so slightly further northwest, looking back towards the open area. And the next photograph, please. So just panning round. This is from almost northwest, looking back in towards the clearing. And then the last photo is looking pretty much due north at the opening where the enclosure would be located. It's difficult to give you a good photograph of this, Chairman, because you're taking views in amongst, glimpse views in amongst trees, but I think the essence of this, that it doesn't really have any wider landscape issues. It's quite low profile. As you can imagine, in this location, we've consulted quite widely with various bodies whose responses are in the committee report, Chairman. There have been no objections from anybody, and would commend the application to members, and it's recommended for approval.
Thank you very much, Gary. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. There were a couple of the first photographs that had some sort of markers in there. Were they actually markers for the enclosure, or was it just coincidence?
I think that's coincidence, Chairman. If you've been around the Arboretum, there are sometimes some markers dotted around. I have wondered what they are for, perhaps probably historical planting.
Councillor Andrews.
It's not my ward, Chair, but I think it's a wonderful idea. Quite often go to the Arboretum there. Lovely to see red squirrels in North Yorkshire.
Thanks, Councillor Andrews. We are in questions.
Well, my question was coming to the question. It's really just a matter of looking at the mechanics of it. Is the idea that the red squirrels are bred and then they're turned out into the wild, or are they going to be kept in that cage forever and more?
I think that's a long-term aspiration, I think, is the issue. I think the information is there in some of the technical reports. I think initially that isn't the intention. Initially, the intention is that this is more of an educational project / visitor attraction in part. But the long-term intention is hopefully that this might form part of some long-term release of red squirrels into the area. I think it's quite a well-rehearsed issue that the issue with red squirrels is not the red squirrels, it's the grey ones. And part of the issue is making sure that the grey ones don't get in and cause the problem that they have historically around the country. So I think there's a way to go on that, but I think that is a long-term aspiration.
Councillor Mason.
I haven't got the full technical answer there for you. I don't think it's ankle weights.
Thank you for that. If there are no more questions, I will open it up for debate, and the local member is Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll cut to the chase. It gives me great pleasure and privilege to propose that we accept the recommendation, but I will go a little further. For those that don't know, it's Kew at Castle Howard. The Yorkshire Arboretum was originally set up as part of Kew at Castle Howard. Kew, collection of most of the world's species of trees and various other shrubby plants. So that's the flora covered. We're now trying to go into fauna, which is, we've already touched on the fact that red squirrels are an endangered species, a native species, which we should be looking to protect better, to better protect. And this is not just covering red squirrels, it's also in the nature of how we protect, not just this species, but other species that come along. So those of you that know me know I have a little mischief streak, and I would, in other circumstances, propose a site visit simply for the excuse to going to the Arboretum. But I'm on my best behaviour today, so I'll cut to the chase and propose that we recommend that we accept the officer's recommendation as tabled. Thank you.
Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I too think this is a really interesting development, and particularly in terms of a local reintroduction of red squirrels, but also the general benefits in terms of tourism and the ecosystem. So more power to their elbow, and I would like to second this. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak? Well, I'm going to say from the chair, I really love red squirrels, so I'm delighted it's coming to Castle Howard and the Arboretum, and I can't wait to make a visit to see them. So thank you very much. Members, if we are finished with the debate, let's move to the vote, and I'll go down the list. Yeah, no. Councillor Andrews. Councillor Bailey. Councillor Cleary. Councillor Dockra. Councillor Goodrick, 4. Councillor Hope. Thank you. Councillor Mason. Thank you. Councillor Potter. And Councillor Thackeray. Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you very much, members. That's 9 votes. I'll move on to item 9, which is application 19/01393/full. This is Sproxton Sports Pavilion Church Walks, Staxton. It's the formation of 2 number cesspools with cable service trench, installation of 9 above ground electrical service bollards and 1 electrical distribution unit. It is part retrospective. And I think it's Neve. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. If we could just go to the next slide, which shows the aerial map. Thank you. So as just mentioned, the application site relates to Staxton Playing Fields, which is located to the northern edge of Staxton Village. The area indicated as part of the site location plan incorporates the full extent of the playing fields. This proposal that's just been detailed, the underground cabling work has been carried out and therefore is retrospective. The next slide, if we could just go to that, shows the entrance to the playing fields through Church Walk, and the next photograph, thank you, that shows the other access to the west of the playing field taken from Willoughby Car Lane. So if we could just go through the next set of photos quite quickly. This photograph shows a view from Wayne's Lane towards the junction with Willoughby Car Lane, and that is the junction there itself. The next photograph shows Willoughby Car Lane itself, and this next slide shows a view within the playing field itself towards the western edge of the site. This shows the southwestern corner of the site, just in slightly closer proximity, and this shows the northwestern corner of the site. The next slide shows the current hole that is there to facilitate the cesspit if approval is granted, and this wider photograph shows a view of the northern boundary of the site, and the final photograph shows a view towards the eastern part of the playing field and also along the southern boundary as well. Thank you. If we could just go back to the aerial map, that would be great. So as detailed within the report, the proposal was updated during the determination period to highlight the proposed above ground elements that haven't yet been installed. Additionally, there was a revised application form to formally alter the applicant to Staxton Playing Fields Association with Mr Mick Whitty as the agent. This procedural amendment was accompanied by supporting documentation that showed the appropriate notice has been served on the cricket club as the tenant. This amendment was reviewed by the council solicitor, who agreed that this has been properly submitted and submitted in accordance with the legal requirements. Confirmation that all the land falls under the ownership of the Playing Field Association has also been received, which is considered sufficient. It must be noted, and this is a key point really, that this application does not relate to the siting of caravans and does not seek approval for the change of use of the land. Therefore, this proposal is currently being made on the basis of the operational development outlined within the description of the proposal only. Consequently, as the local planning authority, we can legally only consider the application as it has been applied for, and we cannot consider the future potential use of the site as part of the determination of this application, as that isn't a material planning consideration. This approach has been reviewed and agreed with the council's legal team. Therefore, this application, as noted, must be considered solely as presented, and future uses of the site, including those that could potentially occur under permitted development rights afforded by other separate legislation, cannot be given material weight within the determination of this application. In terms of late observations, since the agenda has been published, a letter signed by C. Smith, A. Younger, B. Younger and E. Worthington has been submitted, highlighting that they cannot participate in the online meeting. Their continuing disapproval of the application is noted. Correspondence has also been received from Mr. Grover, who has registered to speak on the 30th of April and the 4th of May to highlight concerns that the land is in charitable trust and that Community First North Yorkshire have recently written to trustees. A copy of this letter, which wasn't addressed to either Mr. Grover or the local planning authority, was attached to this submission. The letter indicated that Community First North Yorkshire wanted to set up a meeting between the trustees and the Playing Field Association prior to concerns potentially being raised directly with the Charity Commission. Mr. Grover made a request to delay the planning application until a confirmation that the owner's trustees have given consent has been received. This is noted, however, following legal advice, the agent has confirmed that the Playing Field Association is the landowner of the entire site. This and land registry information, which doesn't contradict this, are considered sufficient for this planning application to proceed. And I would note that the internal management of the Playing Field Association or their compliance with their own constitution is not a matter that the local planning authority can become involved in. Also, the existence of leases between the Playing Field Association and the cricket club is not a material planning matter. At the time that the officer's report was written, there were 64 formally submitted representations, of which 46 were letters of objection and of which 16 are letters of support. They were summarised fully within the officer's report, so I won't repeat those. So moving to the principle of the development, it is considered that this proposal is acceptable in principle. In terms of policy, this wouldn't be in discordance with the requirements of policy SP11, as it wouldn't result in the loss of playing field land or direct loss of a community facility. Neither would it discord with policy SP1 of the Ryedale plan. Sport England have no objection at this point in time, subject to a condition, which is detailed in the officer's report. However, sorry, excuse me. However, as detailed in the report, depending on future plans at the site, which haven't been fully categorically confirmed at this point, and which could also be subject to change, if the local planning authority are consulted by a third party, such as the Camping and Caravanning Club, for example, and if we have an opportunity to make a representation, or indeed if we're in receipt of a full planning application, this matter will be given significant consideration and detailed analysis. Additionally, the more general management of and access to the playing fields or sport facilities is not a matter that the local planning authority can become involved with as part of this application. It's acknowledged that the agent has provided supporting statements, including that dated the 2nd of February 2020, which makes reference to the running costs faced by the Plainfield Association. This is noted, but limited weight is given to this point in the determination of this application, as it relates solely to operational development and not a wider change of use. Equally, concerns received relating to potential concerns over financial gain and where future profits may be directed to from third parties are also noted. But again, as that doesn't relate to a change of use of the land, this cannot be considered a material planning consideration. Also, just quickly, as noted in the report, covenants and trusts are civil matters that we cannot become involved in. Although at this stage there's no change of use of the land, it does appear that there are certain procedures outlined within the Plainfield Constitution that should be followed in that scenario. An informative has therefore been added to the officer's report to note that while this is a civil matter, the Plainfield Association, if permission is granted, may wish to check that they have adhered to their lawful responsibilities outside of the planning process. In terms of character and form, the above and below ground works would not result in any detrimental impact upon the character or form of the locality or street scene. In terms of amenity, as part of the submitted representations, concerns have been received in relation to potential enhanced levels of noise, disturbance and antisocial behaviour as a result of proposed development that could be experienced by occupiers of neighbouring residents and Plainfield users, together with concerns about strangers being in the village and enhanced dog waste. It's not considered that this application for fairly limited operational development would result in a direct impact upon amenity. So these highlighted concerns, whilst they are acknowledged, they cannot be considered as material in the determination of this more limited application. However, should a future planning application be submitted for a change of use or a consultation submitted to the local planning authority, this matter would be fully considered. Careful consideration has also been given to the potential use of cesspools, and whilst the precise nature of their potential future use cannot be quantified at this stage, the cesspools themselves can be controlled, and this will be discussed as part of the drainage section in the report, and I'll come to that shortly. In terms of access and highway safety, North Yorkshire Highways were consulted on this application, and they did confirm that there were no formal highway authority objections to the proposal. As you'll have noted in the report, the Highway Authority did note that they would have concerns should an application be submitted for the implementation of a caravan site at this location. They have concerns over the single track nature of both Waynes Lane and Willoughby Car Lane, which you'll have seen in the photographs. They believe they're of an insufficient width to facilitate the increase in volume of vehicles that a proposal like that is likely to generate. They've noted that significant highway works would be required to improve safety and amenity for users of the highway. Also, as noted in the report, concerns in relation to highway safety have also been received from a number of residents. But as noted, should a formal future planning application be submitted, or if the local planning authority are consulted on a potential future permitted development application, such as one coming from the Caravan Club, this proposal will be fully discussed with North Yorkshire Highways, and their concerns, if it was the latter, would be fed back to the administering organisation. If they confirmed that they didn't believe the access to be suitable, it's likely that the local planning authority would recommend refusal of the exemption certificate on highway safety grounds. But as part of this more limited application, it's not considered that this operational development currently proposed would itself result in any harm to access or highway safety. And then just coming to drainage, as part of this application, the Council's Environmental Health Team and the Internal Drainage Board have been of great assistance in reviewing the proposed cesspool infrastructure. The final revised drawings illustrate that the proposed sealed cesspools would each have a 9,000 litre capacity. They'd be completed on a reinforced concrete base with concrete wall panels. They'd be lidded and they'd have impermeable membrane, further surrounded by protective fleece. Following review of the plans and the information, the IDB and the environmental health officers have provided support to the planning authority in this aspect, it was considered at that point it was appropriate to seek a cesspool management or method statement. This was received and it was fully detailed within the officer's report. Following a review of this, the Environmental Health Officer and the IDB Officer confirmed that they had no objection to the proposal. The Environmental Health Officer noted he was confident that the procedures put in place satisfy previous concerns in relation to possible contamination from overflow. He therefore confirmed no objection. The cesspool management statement, it really affords the local planning authority a degree of control should issues arise. And the Playing Field Association, as the applicant, would also have their own lawful separate responsibility for these works under environmental legislation. So, to conclude, in light of the assessment and following review of the detailed and wide-ranging representations from statutory consultees and residents, it's considered that, subject to the recommended conditions, this development is acceptable in principle and in form in terms of character of the locality. It's not considered that this development in its current form would result in any material harm to the amenity of neighbouring occupiers, nor would it impact upon access or highway safety. And it's considered subject to condition that this wouldn't adversely impact on the surrounding environment with adherence to the cesspool management method statement controlled by condition. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Niamh. We do have two speakers this evening. The first speaker is Councillor John Raper. Councillor Raper, can you hear us now? Are you ready to make your representations to the committee?
Can you hear me, Chairman?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I am ready to make a speech to committee. Thank you.
You've 3 minutes, Councillor Raper.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for Naima for a very detailed report. It covered everything and every aspect. I have no problem with the report nor its findings. However, this application has caused deep rift within the village as such. And I'm going to ask the committee to consider that because the trustees do not actually own this property, it is held in trust and they are a managing organisation of this particular piece of land, not the owners, although they can act in instead of, that this application be referred to the minister, relevant minister in government for a final determination as to whether it should proceed. Because of the way that trustees and their legality is organised within their deeds, it should go down to there for a final arbiter. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Raper. Can I get a view from the Council Solicitor, Glenn McCluskey, please?
Yes, of course, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you very much.
Yes, the Planning Department have obtained copies of the title documents from the Land Registry, which I've looked at, and these clearly show that the trustees of the Playing Field Association are the actual owners of the land. So in my mind, there's no question about who is the owner. The association is the owner. Now, the association is a charitable trust, and clearly they have to conduct their affairs in accordance with the charitable purposes and the objectives. But that is a different matter. That's a matter between the Charity Commissioner and the association. As far as the Land Registry documents are concerned, it's the trustees, the Playing Field Association, who legally own the property. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Glenn. I'll move on to the objector, Mr. Grover. Are you with us, Mr. Grover? You've got 3 minutes to speak if you can hear us.
Yes, good evening, Chair. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can, Mr. Grover. Thank you. You've got 3 minutes.
Okay. As well as all the numerous valid objections already on Ryedale planning site, I would like to add some further comments. Staxton Sports Pavilion and land at the bottom of Church Walk is vague to say the least. What the application should say is the location is Staxton Playing Fields, which is where the work has already been near completed. Charity number 507415 is Staxton Playing Field Association. It has been confirmed by Yorkshire First that the land is held in charitable trust and the charity is the legal owner of the field. The Charity Commission, who are custodians of the field, have not been contacted to say the application was going forward or given permission for the park retrospective work to be carried out. They are unaware of this application, and as that is the case, I have to ask whether this is a legal application and again whether work already completed is in fact legal. There is a strict constitution governing the field, which in it states the field is to be used purely for the benefit of the residents of Staxton. I've uploaded the relevant parts online. As a recreational space for sports, etc. The second application is also against that governing document, although the application has now changed, the plan is still caravans and is quite openly said by the applicants of the village. Why else would a playing field need cesspools? At the very least, I would ask the committee to defer the application until the correct landowner has been informed, and I would invite the committee to view the issues around the impact on the playing field's amenities. I'll finish by saying, as Parish Council Chairman for Willoughby and Staxton Parish, I speak for a high number of people asking for this application to be refused.
Thank you, Mr Grover. Gary.
Chairman, again, I think probably we need to refer to Glenn for a view on this, but it does feel from where I'm sitting that we're getting drawn out of planning land use related issues into other matters, particularly around such issues such as service of notice and ownership in this sort of scenario. So I would quite like to hear Glenn's view on the matter in the light of the last speaker's comments, Chairman.
Thank you, Gary. Glenn, I'm really sorry to ask again, but can you come back in and advise us whether we are legally able to hear this application this evening and determine a decision on it?
Yes, Madam Chair. Again, can you hear me?
Yes, Glenn, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Nothing really to add to what I've just said. It's the position as I see it, and according to the Land Registry documents, is that the Playing Fields Association trustees own the land. Now, as I said earlier, it's a matter between the association and the charitable commissioner as to whether or not this is in line with the governance document and the aims and objectives of the charity. But that really is a charity matter as opposed to a planning ownership matter.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll open it up for questions from members. Councillor Andrews.
Yeah. Chair, just to sort of get back, try and clarify a situation in regard to caravans. Am I right in thinking that the fear is that if this development is put in, it will be used for caravans, or for permitted development caravan sites, where I think it's for 28 days in the year, you can bring a caravan onto a site without actually obtaining planning permission. But on the other hand, even if you do that, you still have to get permission from the environmental health, and you still have to get permission if it involves the highway access. You still have to clarify the highway access with the county council. Is that correct?
Neve.
Thank you for the question. Bear with me just a moment. There are... Sorry, I'm just going to get the document in front of me just so I make sure that I'm giving you the correct information.
Just for members, please correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, it's any 28 days, so you could have, so that could be 2 days a week, and that's the way these permitted development rights are exercised usually.
Sorry, I've just got it here.
whilst Neve's just scrolling through the document, she's looking through the GPDO, Councillor Andrews, so it's quite a scroll. But I think a lot of the contacts that we get through tend to be mainly through from the Camping and Caravanning Club, usually for the five site and licensed site type of things, which are very low-key users, as opposed to, as Neve alluded to in her presentation, the permitted development end of that spectrum is quite a small scale thing, whereas obviously a lot of the caravan sites and camping sites that we deal with through planning applications are much bigger issues and tend to be much bigger states of affair which aren't covered by permitted development. Have you, I think at this stage, Neve's probably got to the bit that she wanted to find.
I have. Sorry, apologies. It's a big document. The GDPO does have a section where it does give permitted development rights for 28 days in any calendar year for temporary uses of land. That has actually, I believe, been updated this year temporarily to allow it to go to 56 days due to the pandemic. But as part of that temporary change of use of land, the land cannot be used as a caravan site, so it isn't afforded rights under the 28-day or 56-day temporary change of use legislation. But as Gary said, there is the separate legislation under the Caravan Act of 1960, which is where we as the local authority become the consultees. So it's administered by separate organisations such as the Camping and Caravanning Club. We are given a period of generally 3 weeks to kind of visit the site, make our views and report back. It is up to the exempting organisation as to whether or not they then grant the licence. We're just a consultee in that process, so it can depend really.
But that licence, when granted, is only for the 28-day period or for the 56-day period, isn't it?
Well, I think it's very much dependent on the licensing organisation. I mean, clearly we're dealing with a piece of legislation that's actually older than I am in terms of the 1960 Caravan and Site Licensing Act. But that's what it still refers everything back to. The most common aspect of those, I think there's a 9 or 10 different little subsections of it, but the most common one that we get consultation letters on are the five touring caravan site licensing proposals.
10 sometimes.
All I'm trying to do, Chair, is just trying to clarify why the residents, my perception is the residents are concerned about caravans, that's all.
Yeah.
I think that does appear to be the case, but in terms of development requiring planning permission, they're not applied for anything of that ilk that would be of a level that requires planning permission, so we can only determine what we've got in front of us. And clearly, many a times we've been told by inspectors you can only deal with what you got in front of you, not what you suspect what might come next week or the week after, because you will, assuming it's at a level that requires planning permission, you will assess that then on its merits at the time based on what you're dealing with. So we can only speculate on what may or may come in the future. We can only deal with what we've got before us right now.
Thanks, Gary. Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I had pretty much the same question as Paul. So my understanding is that the 5 caravan sites are under permitted development. That 28 days allows them to have rallies, so obviously there are more caravans. But I was just wanting absolute confirmation that if they're using this site as a 5 caravan site under PD, are you saying that we would only have any input to that as a consultee from, say, the Camping and Caravan Club or whatever? So we've got no real control over that.
That's the way the permitted development works, yes. I mean, the exempted organisation is required to notify the local planning authority in the area where the site is located to see whether or not there are any amenity, highway, whatever all the issues are that they would wish to be taken into account. And this year we've probably had several, I think, that we've individually, I imagine Neve's commented on quite a lot of them, where we've raised planning issues, where we think there are issues, but in the context of it being of a permitted development, that then the exempting organisation then takes into account in deliberating on whether or not it gives a licence or not.
Yeah, and in order to become an exempting organisation, they have to be licensed themselves by Natural England. Some of our responses to them are very detailed. Each of them that I've had has had a site visit. Where necessary, it's had discussions with highways. You know, we've fed back all the material planning considerations that we would deal with in our own kind of planning applications, because it's our opportunity to do that. So we do treat them very thoroughly.
So I think it's fair to say that these organisations like the Camping and Caravan Club, we can have quite a high degree of confidence in their scrutiny of the suitability of these sites.
I think that's fair. I'm not fully aware of the licensing process they go through with Natural England to be able to become a licensing body, but I would imagine being a government body, it should be rigorous, but we do take our opportunity to provide a thorough representation from our perspective as well.
Councillor Potter, Councillor Mason.
This is just a question about the site, really. Is this the site where they held the festival as well? The music festival?
I know the festival, I've never been to it, so I'm not quite
I'm
sure.
just wondering whether
on
the licensing, this would actually make it easier to expand the festival.
I have an inkling it may be a different site, because somebody had made reference to it in a representation that it didn't share the road, I believe. I think.
Thank you. Do any other members have questions? In which case, I'll open it up. Oh, Councillor Thackeray. Sorry, Councillor Thackeray, your microphone, I don't think he's on, so they're not picking it up on the recording. Thank you.
I beg your pardon. We can't treat this as a caravan site, and it seems to me that even if we are to approve the application, my interpretation of what's been said is that this would then go back for debate between the Charity Commission and the owners of the site as to whether or not it's a legitimate charitable use. So we may approve this, but it doesn't in any way give the green light for caravans, because I think that's a separate legal entity. I think, from a planning point of view, this doesn't give planning permission for caravans either, but I think what you've homed in on is that there are many and numerous controls over the operation and use of land, and planning permission is one, and what you've just alluded to is potentially another.
Councillor Bailey. Does anybody else have any questions? In which case, I'll move it into debate, because I think Councillor Bailey wants to speak. You're on, Jim.
Thank you, Chair. To start with, and this made my head go a bit fuzzy, but we're really making far more of this than is there. What the application says is 2 cesspools, 9 charging points, and an electrical distribution network. How are you going to refuse that, members? What are the reasons for refusal? Obviously, there are concerns about land use, but that's not a matter for us in planning, so I can't see what's wrong with this. Maybe if the Playing Association can make extra funds or something, there's lots of opportunities which this could be a good thing, I feel, but that's not for us. We're looking at what's before us here, and I'd move it, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's certainly interesting, this one, because it clearly precedes further intended development at quite significant cost, because you don't put this sort of stuff in for no reason. And yet there is minimal impact at this stage. And I remember back in my earlier days when I had young children, and I found these simple sites with 5 caravans were excellent, and I used them quite a lot, and there wasn't too much impact. But that, as has already been established, is outside what we're looking at. So I'm sure the applicants are aware of future problems coming over the horizon around access and covenants and so on, and if they're not, they should be. So we have absolutely no reason to refuse this application as it stands in policy terms. So on that basis, I'm quite happy to second this one as well. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Cleary? No, you've done. Anybody else wish to speak? No. From the chair, I am going to make a comment. I really dislike cesspools. I'd have been far happier if these had been proper septic tanks, but I don't like cesspools. And I also wonder, given we've all talked about 5 caravans, why do you need 9 electrical service bollards if it's only 5 caravans? Sorry, perhaps I'm being cynical. Anyway, it has been moved and seconded for approval, so I will go down the list. Councillor Andrews.
Abstain, Chair.
Councillor Bailey. Councillor Cleary. Councillor Dockwra. Councillor Goodrick, I'm going to abstain too. Sorry. Councillor Hope. Thank you. Councillor Mason.
Abstain.
Councillor Potter. Councillor Thackeray. Thank you very much. That vote is carried. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 votes, 4 and 3 abstentions. Am I missing somebody? 4 abstentions, beg your pardon. 5 votes for, 4 abstentions. Thank you very much, members. Can we move on to application, item number 10, application 21/00010 House. This is 20 the Mount Moulton, and it's the installation of a part recessed hot tub with patio surround and the installation of privacy screens. And again, this application is also part retrospective. Who's doing this? Neve, you?
Yes, it's been delegated upwards again, Chairman. Emma couldn't be with us tonight. The reason Emma Woodland was the case officer as much as anything was that this site is located within the designated conservation area at the top end of the mount. And also Emma had dealt with an earlier application which was for a much bigger extension to the premises, which the house, which generated a lot of objections at the time. But I'm conscious, Chairman, that we've got 2 speakers. We've got a Mr. Everett, who's an objector, and a Mr. Blades, the applicant. The report is fairly brief, Chairman, and what I would like to do is just quickly run through some photographs on the presentation, because I think they're probably more helpful than the plans in some respects. So, sorry, Chairman, I think we have a little bit of musical interlude, Chairman.
Apologies, everybody. We'll just we'll mute the telephone if you give us a minute.
Sorry about that.
Right, thank you, Councillor Hope.
Thanks, Councillor Hope.
Right. Thank you, Chairman. Well, if members have got page 249 just as a location plan, that might assist them to sort of understand this particular view. All of the pictures that will be on the screen are sort of variants of this view as you slightly move around the mount. So this view is taken pretty much stood in front of the front of the property. So the main house is sorry, could you just go back to the previous photo? Thank you. This view is taken from the mount looking squarely at the front of the property. And these are all of the properties in the mount are quite distinctive. They're characterised by large, semi-detached, almost villa-type properties, mainly stone with slate roofs and very attractive detailing. As you can see, they're all of that ilk and very much form the character of the conservation area. Despite the size of the property, which are quite substantial, you'll see from the location plan that the properties, most of them, have effectively very little, if any, rear garden. It's all located to the sides of the properties. And as you'll see here, although you can't really appreciate the depth of the property, the house actually extends backwards to the rear boundary, and the amenity area is the front garden and the side area that's open to the left of the main house. So in the background there, you can see actually the photograph slightly foreshortens it, but you see the backs of the properties which are on Middle Cave Road, so that they come behind and they actually set some considerable distance back. So if we just pan across, Chairman, to the next, yeah, there you go. So this is looking from slightly further to the north back across towards the side of the property. So you can see that the stone frontage of the property extends to the rear, and there's a rendered section at the back there, Chairman. Adjacent to the parking area, we'll see some closer up photographs in a moment. You can see the site notice there on the lamppost, Chairman. The actual excavated area of the hot tub is just pretty much parallel where the site notice is, and it sits pretty much parallel with the front wall of the house, Chairman. So we can take the next photograph. This is within the plot, and as you can see, the property's undergoing a degree of renovation at the moment, Chairman. And you can see the newly well, certainly looks a lot better than my lawn, Chairman, the newly laid lawn. And behind that, the paved area is where the hot tub would be. And in front of the hot tub is where the screen fencing that's shown on the application plans would be located, together with the additional planting. Since the application was submitted, there have been 2 revisions to the plans, and what you have now is or before you for determination tonight, Chairman, is a screen fence, effectively in an L shape, which has no gaps in the privacy screens, in part, I think, to address comments from the Town Council who'd made those comments, together with additional planting in a trough in front of the screen fencing. So go to the next photo, Chairman. This is a view from the driveway, so you're looking back across the garden area, and the screen, the hot tub and screen would be behind that. The top of the screening is roughly at the height of the transom bar across the ground floor sash windows, so it's roughly halfway up the sash windows. So it gives you an idea of how it sits in the garden area. Just at this point here, you can see that the new owner, I think fairly recently bought the property, has put new fencing on the perimeter of the site, new gates, and planting behind the fencing as well, which in itself will grow up in time to be quite a screen of that garden area, which at the moment is probably more open than it will be in the medium term, Chairman. I think there might be one more photograph, Chairman. Oh, no, sorry, that was the last one. So if we just go back to the photograph before that one, just to give you an idea that the height of the screen fencing shown on the plans would be halfway up the ground floor window, that sort of height. Okay, Chairman. Nothing else to add, Chairman. I'm aware that we've got 2 speakers. So,
Yeah, we do have 2 speakers. So can I check, is Mr. Andrew Everett with us this evening, and is he ready to make his representation to the committee? You have 3 minutes, Mr. Everett, and I'll try and give you an audible warning when you have 30 seconds left.
Oh dear. It doesn't look as though we've got Mr. on the line. Do we have Mr. Blades on the line at all?
Yes, can you hear me?
Right, shall we go to Mr. Blades and then see whether Mr. Everett joins us?
Try again.
Do we have Mr. Everett at all? No. Okay. Unfortunately, I don't have Mr. Everett's written speech that he would have made tonight, Chairman. The only thing I can say is, Chairman, that during the processing of this application, we started off with quite a number of objectors to start off with in relation to the scheme as originally submitted. They've distilled down to 2 objectors, one of whom was still Mr. Everett, who was expressing concerns about the location of the hot tub, potential for disturbance from the hot tub, and the sort of visual aspects of it too. I think the view of our conservation officer was very much one that, well, it's of subordinate in nature and the sort of thing that you would see in a domestic curtilage, and that in terms of its location and design, its impact on the conservation area was fairly limited, Chairman. In terms of the noise and disturbance, I think there were some concerns at the outset that this probably might be something more than a domestic hot tub and there would be a lot of noise and disturbance from it. I'm sure that isn't the case. It clearly is a residential property and this is intended for the family's use. Having said that, because of the nature of the comments that we did receive, we did ask our environmental health officers' comments on it, and they're detailed in the report, Chairman. They don't raise any issues on the basis that this is essentially for a domestic use. So subject to the design changes, we feel that they've addressed the outstanding objections that we have got. Clearly there are some of the local residents who had originally objected who continue to object, but it has been a reduced response. The Town Council had originally expressed some concerns about the screening of the hot tub and the gaps in the screening that were being proposed at one point, but the amended plan did address that, and the Town Council response, the second response, is in the agenda papers. So we think as amended it resolves that.
Thank you very much. Mr Blades, would you like to make your representation to the committee? You have 3 minutes, Mr Blades. I will try and give you a warning at 30 seconds left. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My wife and I purchased number 20 The Mount in October 2020 with a view to sympathetically refurbishing it throughout. The house was in poor state of repair and we are undertaking a programme of restoration. Currently we're in the process of safeguarding the future of the structure by removing all the incorrectly installed cement pointing, replacing with traditional lime mortar, installation of new heating system, rewire, removal of the modern plastic UPVC windows and replacing with the traditional box sash timber windows. We have been saving for a long time in the hope to deliver a home which meets the needs for our larger than average family of 6. Our initial aspirations as to what the house can deliver have been reined in, not only by advice from your officers, but also from independent advice we have received from others. The hot tub's principal usage will be for Mrs Blades, who was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. Mrs Blades' recommendations from a doctor to exercise, ideally swimming, to help with movement, stiffness and pain within her joints. Can I please confirm here and now that the pool and house as a whole will not and has never been thought of as a commercial project? It is my family's home and will remain so. Our neighbours at Rockingham House residential home have not issued an objection to the application. The nurses who work there have actually commented on how the residents enjoy hearing and seeing our young family playing in the front garden. I would like to finish by thanking your officers for their help and guidance in steering the application towards a favourable recommendation, which was much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Blades. I'll open it up to questions from the committee first. Councillor Andrews.
Yeah, Chair, looking at the location plan, which houses does Mr Everett occupy?
Chairman, I'm not entirely sure because his response was not, it didn't have his address on it, it was from an email. So I haven't got that information. I was looking for it myself on the website today, and it doesn't have an address, it's an email response. We did have another email in from, I think, the occupier of number 8, The Mount, which is obviously not immediately adjacent, but in that road. Rockingham House is the big dwelling on the corner of Middle Cave Road and The Mount. That obviously is the home that's just been referred to by the speaker.
Yes, I know it.
Councillor Bailey.
I was just wondering what we were going to do about having one speaker and not the other one when they'd registered to speak. If it was that they hadn't shown up, that's fine. If for some reason we afforded one and not the other, it makes me slightly uncomfortable.
I appreciate the difficulty, Chairman. I mean, I think this is something that we predicted might happen when we went to virtual meetings, which is why we prevailed upon people to, if they were going to speak, to send us the speeches in advance, so that if there was an IT failure or whatever, then we had the fallback position. But it's just unfortunate we haven't got that from Mr Everett. Just to answer your question, Councillor Andrews, Mr Everett lives at number 21, so he's on the opposite side of the room.
Just to confirm, so that it's open and transparent, Mr Everett was asked for his speech, to submit his speech before, so that we had it in case we did have technical difficulties.
I think the correspondence that goes out, I'm looking across at Ellie now, does highlight that.
Yeah, just resend the link to
Thanks very much, Ellie. I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. Councillor Mason.
Yeah, can you just confirm that Mr Everett doesn't live, he's not overlooking, is he? He's opposite.
21, this is on the even side of the road. Number 21 is on the opposite side of the map. Yeah, yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Just another thing. Number 21. The hill actually slopes down there, doesn't it? So is number 21 below the level of number 20?
I would say not. No. No. Yeah.
I've got a couple of questions.
Would you like me to confirm Mr Everett's location?
I'm not sure it...
I think we've located it. He's pretty much opposite.
Yeah, thank you. I've got a couple of questions. What's the distance between the footpath and the hot tub? Because there's obviously a lawned area in front, so that there's a degree of separation. And depending on what members decide, given that this is for residential use, is it appropriate perhaps to consider a condition which limits the use till 10 o'clock at night or something like that, so that there's no noise disturbance? It's just a thought process. They do it a lot in America, where you have hot tubs and swimming pools where you can't use them after 10 o'clock at night.
I think Neve's doing a measure of the distance. But in terms of the house itself, as you can see, it's set quite a distance back. So we'll get you that measurement in a moment, Chairman.
Sorry, just for clarity, I'm trying to work out the distance between the property of number 20 and number 21, because they seem to be quite far apart.
Oh, I see what you mean. Sorry, I thought you meant a distance from the footpath.
Well, yeah, but
in terms of the distances apart, I mean, we're talking significant distances here. I'd be guessing the precise measurement between the front wall of one and the front wall of another. But, Neve, are you... Right. Yes, yeah.
60 or 70 metres.
It's not 60 or 70, but I guess you're talking a good...
I think we're talking
37.3. It's a fair separation. In terms of your second point about limiting hours of use of a domestic curtilage, I think I feel a little bit uncomfortable with that, Chairman, in the sense that we're dealing with somebody's enjoyment of their residential curtilage. They're only using it for residential purposes, and I think in that sense, this condition probably would struggle to meet the tests for conditions set out in the PPG.
Thanks for that. It was just a thought process. Councillor Dockwra.
I don't know the road particularly well. Is it busy? Is it traffic-wise? I'm thinking the number of the noise from traffic in relation to children playing in a.
As town centre roads go, this isn't the heaviest used road because it's got speed humps on it as well. It links from York Road to Middlecave Road. So if you're coming past the War Memorial, if you're coming in from York, it's that little road that goes off left. And I would suggest that the majority of traffic that's heading in that direction probably goes up Horsemarket Road and up Middlecave Road, I would suggest.
I think it's possibly one of the only roads with speed bumps across it.
Yeah, but nevertheless, I mean, I go down it. I mean, I live in Malton, so I go down it sometimes if I'm going down towards that part of the town. But in comparison to Middlecave Road, it's not as busy. But it clearly is in a town centre location, so it's not quiet.
That was the reason for my question is that obviously if you live in a town, there's traffic noise and children playing outside in the garden in comparison. I can't, Thank you.
Anybody else got any questions? Councillor Thackeray.
Any differently if it was a request for a swimming pool? Or would that be just the same?
Well, the only reason this requires planning permission is because of the degree of engineering operation that preceded getting to the point where we were. I mean, there are permitted development rights for swimming or other pools in curtilages, which are quite generous. And in many instances on a flat surface, you wouldn't end up with the engineering operation to square things up and fall foul of needing planning permission, which is really what we've got here. So if you, in many instances, many locations in back gardens, most pools tend to be laid in level areas because that's what water likes. Well, precisely.
Or frightened, as I
but in the context of residential curtilages, yes, you could construct quite a big swimming pool normally without even needing any planning permission whatsoever. So your permitted development fallback position is or could be quite substantial.
I just wondered why why this was such a.
It was just because of the engineering operation that got to it. Yeah.
Likewise, you wouldn't necessarily demand privacy screens for a swimming pool, would you?
Well, that's where permitted development wouldn't require those things. Yeah.
No, it satisfied my curiosity. Thank you.
Okay, members. If no one has any other questions, I'm going to throw it on to Councillor Andrews because he's the local member. So you take it away, Paul.
Well, I haven't really got much to say, Chair. I mean, my recollection of I know the Mount Road quite well. This is about one of the quietest roads in Malton because it's about the only road which actually has speed humps, and they are really terrifically shattering the speed humps, enough to deter anybody from going along it. We're talking about a device which is right next to the house. I think it's actually behind the building line. It's going to be well hidden, and I can't see anything wrong with it. So there were some concerns expressed by Malton Town Council, which I understand have been dealt with. I have to say, by the way, Chair, that I do attend these meetings of Malton Town Council, so I was there when it was discussed, but I didn't take part in the discussion. I can't see any reason why it shouldn't be given permission, so I would propose it, Chair.
Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Chair. I echo Paul's words there, actually. It's a domestic device for family enjoyment, and I'm not sure, really, why we've been discussing it for so long. So I'd second moving for approval.
Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My friend behind me caught me, or cut me to it. I support this. My only comment would be, in fact, the speed humps generate a lot of noise. If the bank would have been an even quieter road without the speed bumps. But that is, of course, irrelevant, so let's move on.
Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I have sympathy with the applicant's condition, and it's certainly good to hear about the renovations using lime mortar. That always that impresses me. But I very much disapprove of external hot tubs, hot baths or whatever. You don't see many swimming pools in this area for an obvious reason. I spent 2 hours this morning yet again on a climate change meeting trying to deal with climate change. It's a regular thing most weeks for several hours, and in climate change terms I think they're just a ridiculous waste of water and energy. There's no indication of any renewables. But that said, as with most planning issues at this time, there's no support in policy terms to protect the climate. So I'm afraid I can't support this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? Right, from the chair, I'm going to say I will support this. I'm so pleased it's been moved and seconded. I suggested the nighttime curfew merely because I was protecting residential amenity of the neighbours, and I hope that the householder will think on that. I'm sure they will. As it goes, I've got no problem with it. And as for speed humps on the mount, it's the reason I don't go up the mount, because they're horrible. So I avoid the mount. It's worked. Yeah, it's worked. It's worked. So, members, it has been moved and seconded for approval, so I'll go to the vote. Councillor Andrews.
4.
Councillor Bailey. 4. Councillor Cleary. 4. Councillor Dockra. 4. Councillor Goodrick. 4. Councillor Hope. 4. Councillor Mason. 4. Councillor Potter. Abstain. Councillor Thackeray. 4. Thank you, members. That is 8 votes for and 1 abstention. I think you will find at the end of your agenda a list of applications which have been decided on under delegated powers. I don't suppose anybody has any comments, but yeah. No. Thank you, members. I will declare the meeting. Oh, is there? I missed that. Oh, yes, there is there is. Do you want to say anything? That would be good, actually.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. It's a fairly minor application, but it was one that was located in Terrington within the designated conservation area. A very attractive property, as many are in Terrington, but set back behind the usual properties that are set on the street frontage. But the site is also accessed via a public right-of-way, which went straight through the site, which affords very direct views of the proposed extension. Which was very much at odds with the typical sort of vernacular design of building that we'd got there, and so was refused, I think, under delegated powers under that particular set of circumstances. But the inspector's decision is there, which is quite a brief decision, but very much supportive of the approach. So. Whether that will mean we're presented with a different design of extension at some future point, I don't know, Chairman, but I think it was just a little bit too jarring.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you, members. I'll declare the meeting closed. It's almost 7:50. Thank you very much for your attendance this evening. Nice to see you all.